reading the like weekly readings, and the part where it has you draw the community map, and I was thinking about like where I wanted church to be and stuff. And then I was thinking about like the community that I grew up in versus Rexburg, and how blessed we are here in Rexburg to have a temple in our community, and and how many people that blesses, for it to be so nearby. And I was thinking that in, I guess, my ideal community, but also like all communities, there should be a temple for those to go to and um, do temple work for those who can't do it for themselves. And yeah, and I guess I was just thinking about how one day in the millennium that will be a reality, and that will be just so cool. So that was my thought.
That's awesome. You kind of make me feel a little bad now. I'm looking at my drawing that I did, and I have a church in there, but I also threw in a McDonald's. I don't have the temple, so priorities, I guess, weren't on the right spot there. But that's awesome. Yeah, we can go ahead and get going here. It should be a quick one, it looks like. They're just the three sections and then the one picture area. So it should be pretty quick. So I'll go ahead and share my four big ideas, and then we can just go from there. My four big ideas for question one was traditions and celebration rituals unite us. The second one was, sorry, we also read of generations. One second. Sorry. We also read of generations who were strengthened and blessed because of the righteous traditions of their fathers. To some degree, each of us is influenced by the traditions and patterns for living created by our ancestors generations back. And this is a quote. This next one here. You young men and young women, most of you will marry and have children. Your children will have children, as will the children who come after them. Life is a great chain of generations that we in the church believe must be linked together. For there will be no will be some broken chains. Do not let yourself become such, I pray. And then this is from Elder Holland, this next one. Not long ago, Sister Holland and I met a fine young man who came in contact with us after he had been roaming around through the occult and sorting through a variety of Eastern religions, all in an attempt to find a religious faith. His father, he admitted, believed in nothing whatsoever. But his grandfather, he said, was actually a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But he didn't do much with it, the young man said. He was always pretty cynical about the church, from a grandfather who is cynical to a son who is an agnostic to a grandson who is now looking desperately for what God had already once given his family.
I guess I can go next. I love that quote about the, well, I love both of the quotes that you shared, but I love the one about the broken chain. I think as like a convert, it's easy to like see myself as like the first link in that chain. And I think all that you want when you are that first link is for like um it to just continue, you know? Um, so my nuggets this week were: rituals and traditions can unite us, motivate us, and educate us as individuals and families. Intentional families maintain strong family ties because they create a plan together and stick to it. Our good memories from childhood are often centered around rituals, and intentional communities must be both beautiful in form and function. I can go next. I wrote symbols and celebrations have great meaning. Um, I love the example of like the American flag and the Pledge of Allegiance. I went to a very patriotic school growing up, and so like that's just, I didn't realize how much that was a part of me until I realized that a lot of people didn't cope with that. And that's just, anyway. I also shared the same quote that you did, Donald. In the Book of Mormon, we read of generations who were lost to the blessings of the gospel because of their false traditions of their fathers.
I did. Spending time outdoors is helpful both physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and communities are important for the development of all individuals.
So Larissa put hers in the chat, so I'll read hers and then I will read mine as well. Hers say rituals and traditions have long been used to unite families and communities, even if the customs may vary throughout time. Their overall goal of bringing people together, inspiring motivation, guidance, and education never changes. Family with strong customs and holidays are typically stronger and more prepared to handle the difficulties of the contemporary world. Celebrations and traditions act as a unifying factor, trying people to tying people to their communities and families. Studies indicate that a person's likelihood of experiencing melancholy, delinquency, and criminal activity is lower when they have a sense of belonging to their social groups. In a similar vein, kids who have a strong sense of familial attachment are more inclined to follow regulations. And then future generations must have an unblemished heritage of body, brain, faith, and morality, according to President Gordon B. Hinckley, um, noting that our deeds and customs affect not just our offspring, but future generations as well. He urged youth to avoid becoming weak links in the line of their ancestors. And then lastly, rituals, festivities, and traditions are effective ways to teach people. Family customs and traditions provide valuable lessons of morality and character, much like national symbols and ceremonies do the same for people. Every custom teaches a valuable lesson that strengthens family bonds and provides inspiration. I really like those. Mine say youth who feel a part of their communities are more likely to abide by the community's laws and standards for behavior. Traditions and celebrations give us direction, meaning, and purpose. When it rains in the workplace, children get wet at home. That's a quote that I really liked from this week's reading. And then last, I just have Moses 7:18, and it says, "And the Lord called his people Zion because they were one heart and one mind, and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them."
Awesome. Those are all really good. For question 2, the if-then statements, I put, if we want to be more like the Savior, then we need to be more aware of our surroundings and try to live in a more Zion-like community if possible. If we follow the example of Lehi's dream, then we remember to hold the rod, especially in those troubling times. If families have rituals and traditions, then their lives might be more in line with that, with what is most important. And the last one is if we have tradition, and those traditions might carry on into our future lives.
I really like those. Mine, sorry, my husband is bothering me. Um, if if the problem in modern families is a feeling of discontentedness, then the solution is family rituals. If a family doesn't support each other and put up barriers, they will become an entropic family. If something is repeated, coordinated, and significant to a family, then it is a ritual. And if communities are intentionally designed, then they can positively affect the health of children and families.
Mine are if we want to build strong families, then we should establish good traditions. If children feel a part of communities, then they will be less at risk of straying from good paths. I guess that really just depends on if it's a good community or not, though. If we focus on building good communities, then the communities and individuals will be more successful and have greater outcomes. And if we spend more time outside, then you can feel greater peace.
I like that yours kind of focus on going outside a lot. I feel like that's kind of been a theme. Um, So my nuggets say if we value traditions, then we'll make a greater effort to share them with our children. If we're faithful, then Heavenly Father will help to reassure us in our family decisions. If we want to honor those who have impacted us, then we'll follow the traditions that they have set forth for us. And if we love God, then we'll do our part to be involved in the gathering of Zion.
Perfect. Moving on to question 3. The 2 but statements that I put was, but if we want to live a more Zion life, then we will plan ahead and move to a good area if possible. But if we want to be more like the Savior, then we will follow the consistency and perfection that comes from some of the church rituals.
Sorry, I just saw Larissa put in her ones for the last question, so I guess I can read those and then I'll read my but statements. And I think she's also put in her but. I'll read all of her stuff and then I'll read my but statements. So her ones for the last question were, if communities are intentionally designed to promote social interactions, provide green spaces, and support economic development, then they will foster the well-being of families and children. If cities prioritize wide streets, community centers, and personal and common green spaces, then they can create environments that support both physical and mental health. If communities facilitate intergenerational connections and promote social relationships, then they will contribute to personal and community well-being. If communities are designed to accommodate the needs of all ages with a focus on childcare and elder care, then they will be more inclusive and conducive to a healthy society. So those were her 4 for the if then. And then her but statements are, but achieving the ideal community design can be a complex and multifaceted process. But the impact of intentional community design on social interaction and well-being is influenced by cultural factors. I really like those. My but statements are, but families get busy and forget to maintain their rituals, but many communities can't afford to have green spaces and other community resources. But just a note on that last one. I was just thinking about some communities that I knew growing up that some of them had all of these resources and like wonderful green spaces and wonderful programs, and then others just couldn't afford to like create good parks, and they were more focused on like maintaining like roads than having good community programs, like because there just wasn't enough money to go around. So I think that's important to know.
I feel like your but statement, Emily, is like very realistic and like actually applicable. Like not to say that the others aren't, but I feel like a lot of times mine are like very hypothetical, like but this, but I feel like that was very applicable. So mine are, but traditions need to be good and children need to be taught the importance of them. But the good things in communities need to be accessible to all people.
My but statements are, but no city can be perfect, but the traditions that we follow don't have to be huge, just big enough to be impactful in our lives. I think that this was one thing that I kind of focused on a lot as I was doing the reading. I felt like some of the traditions that I have in my family are so small compared to what I kept thinking about when it comes to a tradition. So I think that it's important to remember that a tradition doesn't have like a size. It can be something really little, and it can also be, I don't know, something big.
Great. Those are awesome. Did we just want to describe what our picture looks like? Or what like we thought about? I don't know. Okay. I can just describe what mine kind of looks like. I have what looks like a roundabout in like the middle and like 4 entryways. So the middle is like the town square or whatnot. And there I have homes. I mentioned before a McDonald's, an elderly facility, 2 parks, and a church. Mine was pretty plain, but what did you guys draw?
That's okay. Mine was also pretty basic because I'm not an artist and I was kind of struggling to make it actually look like a community. Um, so mine kind of like you, Donald. I put like the community hub, the village center at the middle. Except mine was, instead of being a square, it was like designed to be like a street. Because growing up, that was like my community hub. It was like, it's called like Oak Bay Ave, and it's like this street with all of the shops and stores and everything that you need there. And so I was kind of going based off of that. And then um kind of I had 3 schools. So I had elementary school, middle school, and high school, law enforcement, a church, and then I had like a section for like apartment buildings, and then a really big park and with a playground and open space and a rec center on that property. And I noted that the rec center would have childcare and city services. And then basically I like shaded in all around all these things and I said, this is the suburbs, like all the houses. Um, but yeah, that was what mine looks like.
Okay, so I also, here's what you gotta picture. You gotta picture a little square in the middle, and it's like the shopping, grocery. I didn't label stuff like McDonald's or anything, or like I just did shopping slash food. Okay, and then right outside the square, picture like a little sliver around the whole square, okay? And that's like nature, travel, like nature and like parks and stuff, like just good visuals. One of the things I took away from the reading was just like nature and like that kind of green stuff is good. Probably because I don't know. I grew up in a desert and like I loved looking at like one time I lived right next to a big mountain with like the desert and that was so cool and I just love it. And then okay, right outside of so we have shopping, nature, and then we have housing that goes all the way around. And I kind of did it that way so that way like all of the houses could all see the nature. Um, and within the little housing communities, so each little side of the square, there's a school within it. Um, Another thing, like I didn't grow up having a school in my neighborhood. And so like I would travel like 15, 20 minutes to get to school every day. And so I did live in a few neighborhoods that had schools, but I never went to that school. And so I just thought, I was like, wow, what that would be like to live. Anyway, and now going to Rexburg and teaching here, all my kids are within like 1.3 mile parameter of the school. And so I just think that's really cool. And then just more nature and shopping on the outside. Okay, sorry, that was a lot.
I think that it's good that there's a lot of balance in these neighborhoods. Mine, I was kind of like, what is going on? So I just threw together what I thought like my idea of a good community would be. This I feel like definitely replicates like my childhood community. Um, Even though it wasn't like super tight, it was just a very small town. I have like, okay, this is so hard. I have a roundabout in the center, and this was my favorite part of my town that I grew up in. The like roundabout in the middle of town, it had like the most beautiful artwork in it. It was these giant like tulips that were made out of umbrellas, and I always have loved that. And I think that it's such a good way to showcase someone's artwork. So I have that just in the middle of my city, and then around that roundabout, I have a school. Right next to the school, I have a community garden because that's one of the things that I feel like was very impactful on me. It was so fun to go to the community garden, not necessarily just like picking things to bring home, but even just like putting in the work towards that and knowing that I somehow could have benefited the community. And then we have a police and fire station and a hospital right next to each other. And then I kind of kept the grocery store on the edge of my community. Just because I feel like a grocery store should, I don't feel like a grocery store should be the center of a community. Um, I think that it should stay on the outside. And then instead of making like one solid church, I did a community center. I was talking to my husband about this because I felt like I didn't want to make my map super complex and I didn't want to make lots of different churches. Um, so I felt as though a community center could be used to be in place of all of those churches. And then I have a park in the center of a neighborhood, and then farmland kind of on the outside. I felt like um, the naturey parts were super important to me, and especially kind of spreading them out. One of the things that I loved from growing up was being able to ride my bike or walk to the park with my friends and not have to be like super stressed about my parents. And it was great because so many houses are around. So if something did happen, there's always someone else watching. Um, and so that's kind of my setup. I went by like the six, um, not requirements, but suggestions in a strong community video. Um, and I think I got a little bit detailed because I made sure to put sidewalks on my map because I felt like that was a really important thing. In Rexburg, I know that there are so many sidewalks, but even in some areas, there's not sidewalks. And I felt like that was super important. And it said in the video, it's really important for a community to be able to walk around places. And there was one lady who said she walks to the grocery store, she walks to her doctor's appointments. So that's one of the things that I really wanted within my community map. And then I have some more houses and apartment complexes on the edge of the town too. But that's it.
Bella, where are you from?
I am from Selah, Washington.
Okay, cool. Just wondering.
Yeah, I grew up there when I was really little, but then when I got to high school, I moved to northern Idaho. So very different.
I love that you emphasize sidewalks because at least where I live in Rexburg, the sidewalk, like from like there's a sidewalk like in front of where we live, and then you walk down a bit and then it stops and you have to cross the street to get to the sidewalk. You walk down a bit and then it stops and you have to get on the street and walk for a bit before you, and it's kind of a pain like when I have a stroller because I'm walking my child, and it makes me a little nervous to get in the road even though it's not a busy road. It still makes me nervous to like get in the road with the stroller. So I love that you emphasize that because I do think it's really important.
Those all sound like great communities. Wish I put a little more detail in mine, but so for question 5, did we just want to pick one that stood out to us and just kind of go around that way again? Kind of looking at it. I like question E. The question was, how does the ritual and symbolism found in ordinances of the gospel instruct and unite us as disciples of Christ? I instantly thought about the sacrament for this, and I put through rituals. They show us how to do things the correct way. When we think about the sacrament, if the young men make a mistake on any of the words, they have to redo it. It's because Christ is perfect, and through his ordinances, we can be perfect like him.
I love that. For some reason, I like didn't read that question, so I didn't even know it existed, and now I wish that I had answered that one because that's such a good one. One that I did answer was G, which is how can you be more intentional in designing family rituals and patterns in your family? And I was just reflecting on how it's been really hard in like my little family with my husband and Benji to create rituals because we're both in school and our schedule changes like every 3 months, um and it's been really hard, but I want to be more intentional about creating like Sunday rituals because no matter what, we're all always like not doing anything on Sunday besides church. And so that's really the time where no matter what our schedule is going to look like, we're always going to be able to do stuff on Sundays. So I was kind of commenting on how I want to be more intentional about creating beneficial and fun rituals that we can kind of do on Sunday.
I will talk about B. First of all, I just love all your thoughts on these ones. So, how can you apply the ideas, processes, and principles we have discussed in our design unit to your own aspirations? So, one of my big takeaways from the design part of it was just like kind of just like being intentional, and like really thinking through different things. Um, and so I wrote, I think I can do this by being thoughtful of what I teach my children and the importance of symbols and traditions. Many people think that some traditions are silly, and I'm even guilty of that. And I feel like sometimes I haven't been, and it seems okay. This sounds so silly, but like, oh, should I really be caring about that? Should it really be like, is it really that big of a deal? And so I start getting in my head like, do I really care? But there's a lot of value in things, and I love that they gave the example of um, we have like graduation ceremonies to celebrate other people's successes. And I think that I can be more intentional in like what I value um, as a wife, eventually a mother, and a professional. And so really think about what I think is important, and then I can help foster those rituals and traditions. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's where my brain was at.
I have felt very similar about rituals and traditions. I feel like some of my family traditions are so strange, and it like kind of makes me laugh because they're definitely things that I don't know if I'll carry into like my family, but I know or my future family, but I know that my family definitely would not be the same without them. But anyways, I really liked F. It says, how can we be intentional in decorating our homes with symbols that remind us of who we are and what we stand for? This one I feel like definitely stuck out to me because I am horrible at decorating. My house is so plain and boring. And I was talking to my mother-in-law about getting a like a canvas or a picture of Christ for above my dining room table. And I felt like that's one thing that is definitely missing in my home. Um, but anyways, it says my question or my answer says, I think it can be important to have photos of things that we love, as well as reminders of the Savior throughout our home. Um, I think that these can stand as reminders of who we are and the things that are important to us. I love how when you're in single housing, there are pictures of Jesus Christ or a temple within almost every like apartment. And I think that that has definitely made an impact on me just because I know like the temple is where I want to be at. And the things that I do impact where I will be. And so I think keeping reminders of those things in your home are super important and can help strengthen us. And then Larissa, she said G, how can you be more intentional in designing family rituals and patterns in your family? Establishing frequent family gatherings where conversations and planning for these practices take place is necessary to improve the intentionality of building rituals and routines within the family. It is imperative that these customs are consistent with the family's guiding principles, accommodate the many age ranges within the family, and actively include every member. A key component of this process is being flexible, letting these rituals alter and grow as the family dynamics do. This way, they will continue to fulfill their intended function and stay pertinent to the family's goals and requirements.
Perfect. Thanks so much for everyone to help Larissa's read Larissa's answers. It was really good. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we close? I know we have the networker, right? That still needs to share.
Yes, yes. Glad you reminded me. So, funny thing, I spent a good 30 minutes doing the friendly challenger thing, and then I realized that I was not the friendly challenger. So I have a great article to share. It's about nature. I will add it as well, just to throw it out there. But I needed to find like an organization, and so let me scroll over to that really fast. One second. So one organization that I found is called the Sierra Club. And their purpose is, I'll just read their little mission statement: to explore, enjoy, and protect the wild places of the earth, to practice and promote the responsible use of Earth's ecosystem and resources, and to educate and enlist, it's kind of intense, to educate and enlist humanity to protect and restore the quality of natural and human environment. And like the purpose of it though is because they want people to be connected to the nature, connected to nature and everything. So it's called the Sierra Club. I will add that as well on the discussion board. So thank you for the reminder, Donald.
Yeah, no worries for sure. Did we want to make assignments for next week?
I can host.
Looks like Larissa's going to be the preacher. I can do the scribe.
Can I be well, actually, I don't know what I want to be.
I will be whatever's left. I don't really care. I'm looking at the roles now. I think, is it the connector and the friendly challenger left? Slash the summarizer and active listener and the friendly challenger are like the optional roles. So Courtney, if you are the networker connector this week, I can be that for next week, and then you can choose one of the optional roles.
Okay, that would be lovely. I might be I might be the active listener next week.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.